Do you know the difference between a fighter and a martial arts practitioner, a martial artist? Do you know the difference? Really? Well, I want to define for some and clear up for others, maybe, perhaps, what the difference is. First of all, the word martial means war arts, martial arts, war arts. Many regions, many countries, cities, villages throughout the history of this planet, especially in the 14th, we'll start there. 14th, 15th century up until the present, developed systems and styles of defense, protection of one's self, one's family, one's village, one's province, city, state, and even nation. And going back to when I said 14th century, especially back that far, and even before then, actually, we developed systems and styles to protect ourselves. I'm redundant. I'm saying the same thing again. But we commonly refer to those things as martial arts, or war arts. And there are hundreds and even thousands of fighting arts in existence. There are many that we can just blurb out that are pretty common nowadays. You have your Korean martial arts, Taekwondo, Tong Sudo, Hwarangdo, Hapkido, Kuksowan, Subakdo, and so forth. These are Korean martial arts. And then you have your Japanese Okinawan martial arts styles and systems. I'll start with Kobudo, or Kobudo for some people. That's your weapons arts. Okinawan Japanese martial arts. Then you have your empty hand fighting arts. Shotokan, Goju-ryu, Wado-ryu, Chito-ryu, Shori-ryu, Shorin-ryu, and that list goes on as well. Then you have your Chinese arts. To include the soft arts, or the so-called soft arts, Tai Chi, Chuan, Bagua Zhang, Xingyi. Then you have Hung Gar, Hop Gar, Wing Chun, and the list goes on. Of course, you have Tai Chi. I said that, and you have 5 schools of Tai Chi. And then you have other arts that come from the islands. You have the Filipino martial arts. You have Thai land, Thai boxing, as it were. Then you have Russian Sambo. You have Penjat Salat. You have Burmese Bando. And again, the list goes on. But these are those martial arts systems and our styles that we are familiar with. And you even have my system, Jinindo. You have Bruce Lee's system, or art that he created, Jeet Kune Do. You have Ron Van Cleef's martial arts system that he created, Chinese Goju-ryu. You have Moses Powell, God rest his soul, Grandmaster Dr. Moses Powell, Sunukis Ryu. Then you have V-Jitsu, which was his predecessor, his teacher, Dr. V. And the list again goes on. So what am I getting at? The difference between fighting and martial arts. Well, a martial artist should never be looked at as a fighter. He or she is an individual that is learning a way of life that has as one of its elements fighting. 90%, and I'm being rough with this, 90% of a martial artist repertoire is spiritual and everything else. The 10% is the fighting, or the fighting aspect. A martial artist should never ever be looked at as a fighter. They should be looked at instead as an individual who is well rounded in life, in the world in which he or she lives, in the society or the community in which he or she lives. And fighting should always be the last thing. It should always be the last resort. If you are a credible instructor, no matter what your discipline, this is what you should teach your students. I don't want any trouble. I don't want to fight. It's really that simple. If you're walking around talking about how many people you can beat up, how good you are, and you're better than this person and that person, you have lost the whole concept of being a martial artist. I know there are many who espouse fighting, and they talk about, well, he's a fighter and he can beat this person and that person. Why are we talking about that in the first place? I can't recall the last fight that I have had in 60 plus years. I can't. It was just that long ago. I mean, isn't this what you teach your students? I don't want any trouble? Or do you teach your students, come on, bring it on. We'll see what you got. Let me see what you got. That's not a martial artist. It is not. A martial artist has to tame their tongues, not be so swift to go into battle with anyone, so that you can go home and the other individual can go home to their family. It's really that simple. It's mastering you, yourself, your attitude. That's what you're mastering. If you have a propensity to want to jump off of the handle really quick when someone says something that you don't like or does something that you don't like and you want to fight, you need to reconsider your position as an instructor, a black belt, a master, grandmaster, guru, or whatever. If you are a martial artist, you must. Now that's a martial artist real quick. So what's a fighter? A fighter is an individual who is willing and ready to fight no matter what against another person who's willing to fight no matter what. You both mutually agree to duke it out. You mutually agree to go against each other or one another, mano a mano, as they say. That's a fight. When you have two willing participants wanting to do damage to one another, that's a fighter, and that's a fight. Do you recall when you was a child, maybe in school, you hear this yell, "It's a fight"? That's usually what you would hear. Unfortunately at school, but it happened occasionally. It's a fight, so and so is fighting. And you go out to the playground, the basketball court or wherever, and you see two people. Sometimes you see females. Most of the time it'll be a guy and another guy. They take their coats, jackets off or shirts off, and they square up. Those are fighting individuals. Those guys are actually in a fight because they're both willing to engage in physical conflict, physical battle. Now, getting back to the martial artist as it relates to being a martial arts practitioner, had that been one of those individuals, a true martial artist, no matter what caused the situation to go awry or to become fueled, the martial artist would, I don't want any trouble. He or she would try to avoid that situation and walk away. That's what a martial artist would do. And if the person on the other side of them was determined to inflict physical harm on the martial arts practitioner, and the martial arts practitioner could not evade and or get away, then it becomes self-defense. Do you get what I'm saying? So, when people talk about the late great Bruce Lee, people in supposedly some martial arts communities, and even people who don't even study martial arts, who say that he never won a championship, he never participated in competition, and he wasn't ranked. See, herein lies the rub. Bruce Lee trained in the art of fighting, not in the art of sports competition. If you don't learn anything else, please learn this from this video. He was a fighter in the sense that he wanted to find the most effective way to take care of himself against virtually every type of opponent. It's really that simple. It doesn't make him a fighter per se, but he studied the art of fighting, and he was true to his call or his calling as a martial arts master, because he studied the art of fighting. That is why he amassed so many books, so many videos on virtually every fighting style or system that existed, so he could chisel himself like that sculpture he pointed out, and find all of the things that was already in him, what he had to remove that was not useful to him as a practitioner of fighting. It wasn't like, okay, hey, you come here, let's come out to the backyard and fight. That was not Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee learned how to perfect himself as a formidable weapon in the event that he had to use his martial arts in a confrontation. It was not like, oh, I'm gonna beat you up, and the other guy saying, I'm gonna beat you up. Now I know about the story of Wong Jack Man and the fight that he and Bruce Lee had. I'm aware of that. That was a totally different situation or circumstance. This man wanted Bruce Lee to close down his school, and you can read the story for yourself at your leisure and find out what that was all about. But from a credibility standpoint, Bruce Lee was a martial arts master through and through, in the sense that he was a very philosophical man. He studied philosophy. He didn't want to start any trouble, but if he had to protect himself, everyone who lived around that time, martial arts practitioners, friends, celebrities, and the like, they already knew that he was the real thing. But he didn't go around going for bad, challenging people. So why are the present day martial arts practitioners, especially in the MMA, mixed martial arts arena, always saying Bruce Lee never beat anybody? Who did Bruce Lee beat? What championships did he win? You really need to just stop, because he represented the real thing. He wasn't going around saying, well, I had 30 fights, undefeated. That stuff was unimportant to him. It didn't matter to him. But to those people who are talking about it, who tout this stuff all of the time, It means something to them. But stop trying to pull Bruce Lee into that. It's not who he was. And you know, jealousy is really something else. The Bible says that jealousy is as cruel as the grave. Many people were jealous of Bruce Lee because maybe he was something that they were not. Maybe he had arrived at such a spiritual level in the martial arts that they didn't dare to tread. So now, as I close, I hope you understand better the difference between a fighter and a martial artist. Martial artists are not fighters. They don't get into rings to beat the brains out of somebody else. That's not what we do. We have sport competition, yes. But we can go home afterwards, safe and sound. But we're not saying, oh, let me stick my chest out because I'm the heavyweight champion of this and I can beat anybody. Or he can't beat me, or he's a piece of crap. So please understand this. I think that's all I had to say. But it's a good lesson to learn. Now let me ask you a question. If you are involved in any form of martial arts at all, are you a fighter or a martial artist? That was it. And that was all.